Hello and welcome to Chess Book Reviews 106. I have got 4 books for you, which continues in our Fred Reinfelds series. So let's have a look. The first of these is published in America. 101 Brilliant Ways to Checkmate. Ask most chess players from the baby boomer generation how they acquired and sharpened their tactical skills, and chances are a Fred Reinfelds tactics collection will be part of their answer. Well, that could very well be true, actually. Fred Reinfelds, 1910 to 1964, was in many years among the strongest chess players in the country. That's the US of A, of course. This is a Russell Enterprises Inc. book. Came out some years back, and the original came out decades ago. This has been updated. I'll just check through. It has an preface by Don and Judith Reinfelds. One of the others I reviewed, I think, or if I haven't done it yet, I will. A contribution from his wife. Yes, it's interesting. They got in contact with many of today's players, now the grandparents of chess-playing teenagers, fondly recall growing up with Reinfelds' books. It's lovely to write that. I thank Russell Enterprises. This is Hannon Russell of the US of A. It explains how to write your moves down, which of course you wouldn't need, but nevertheless. Then it gives 1,001 positions, like this. There we are. As you can see, the first few are probably pretty easy. It doesn't stay like that, I can assure you. Some of them more complex ones with test masters. But some of the easy ones. It's a shame that perhaps they're not linked by theme, or perhaps they are. It might be. It's difficult to tell, first brush. Chapter 8, Composed Problems. Oh, yes. Well. Some of the positions are without attribution. Oh, that's a shame. You could have put in the games, couldn't they, say what games they were? But if Fred didn't put it in his book, to do the research would be a pretty thankless task, and I'm not sure that all of the answers would have come up, no matter how comprehensive the database. This is edited by Bruce Alberston. I'm not sure if I've heard of him, except in this context, I mean, but that doesn't matter. There it is. Now, the next book is something I have used many, many times. This book is, look at the spine, look at the stains. That is the stains of use. And I can't claim too much in this life. This is published by Cornerstone, with subtitle, Winning Patterns, Principles and Tactics of Endings. And this is not a theoretical book, nor is it something which very, very strong players and those with a good detailed endgames books at their disposal would want. But this is for weaker players, club players that play for kicks, as John Spielman says. For example, here's something with the 2 bishops. There we are, see them on E6 and D6. The book is in English descriptive notation. Let me just move it across slightly, so you can get a flavour of it. There you are. Straighten it up. And there you are. I know I'm not very good at doing this, but I think you're getting it. The book has 128 pages. It says I finished reading it in 1993. Well, 20 years later, 25 years later, 30 years later, I still think it's a really brilliant book. 30 years later. It's got basic mates, 2 bishops, bishop and knight. I had to do that in a county match once, and I couldn't do it. I felt upset at myself, but nevertheless, I tried. Strategy in the Chess Endgame by Fred Reinfelds. Here's a companion volume to the one I had earlier. 1001 Brilliant Ways to Checkmate. In fact, we've had that already, haven't we? This is one we haven't had then. 1001 Ways I've shown the same book. 1001 Winning Chess Sacrifices and Combinations. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, it's getting late. Removing the Guard. That's one of the discovered checks, discovered attacks. So it is linked by themes. Double attacks. What I would recommend is that you dive in. If you get the magazine Chess, each month they give some positions, don't they? So it's a bit like that. But these are older ones, obviously. Brilliant sacrifices and combinations. That's what. And 99% of the fun too. Well, it's fun if you can pull them off. It's not so fun if you lay victim or become the victim, so to speak. What you have to do is get in first. Once again, the positions are not attributed, but I wouldn't. That doesn't detract from the fact that it's a really good book. Chapter 18, Zugzwang. Queen Sacrifices, Chapter 13. It gives you a little flavour of the book. And its cover price is $19.95, so nearly $20. And it's a Russell Enterprises book, and you should find it available from the usual dealers. But if not, look online, see if eBay can help you. The last I have for you is something quite which Leonard Barden picked up on, and has been appearing in chess, which is Chess Mastery by Question and Answer. And this is not quite the same as they do. They don't have. This was first appeared during the war, and it's an Isaac Pittman. Pittman did some good books by Denker and Reinfeld and Janowski, of course. My grateful thanks to Sidney Bernstein for his invaluable help in reading the proofs. You couldn't get better proofreader than Sidney Bernstein, could you? And he lived to a ripe old age. It gives not too much, 20. It gives 16 games. 19th century efforts, one of Steinitz against Selman, Matteson against Nimzovich, game from the Olympiad with Irva as black, so it goes on. Sultan Khan as black. And what they do is they give the game and then they ask you questions during it. Since the queen bishop can hardly be said to be developed on a modest square, should white have continued with, and it gives an alternative 2 or 3 moves. And I think that's a question which we would, when you're sitting there, you're not always just finding the next move. You'd be lucky. But what I mean is, we can question ourselves, and after the game, going over the game with your opponent, which you should try to do if you possibly can, is always helpful. Well, particularly if you're playing a much weaker player or a much less experienced player, then try to make it helpful for them. Here's a game between Matteson. I think actually they like that now to be called Matteson's, and Nimzovich. It talks about the Nimzo-Indian. The text move and pawn to queen 4 imply 2 totally different conceptions of controlling the center, namely ... question mark, and you have to say what you think this would be. 2 totally different conceptions of controlling the center. Now, is that a question that an average club player could answer? I think the answer is yes, but would they feel comfortable doing so, or would they be able to get all the points out? Or when they were told the answer, they'd say, well, I knew that. Well, perhaps you did, perhaps you didn't, but you've got to get it out. Here's another example. Why is this a very strong move? That's all it says. You could give quite a detailed answer, couldn't you? Long distance check enables black to get at the weak points without any loss of time. How does black continue after 13 pawn to bishop 3, or after 13 knight to bishop 3? In other words, 2 possible moves, neither of which were played, but you are asked to look into them. And as you can see, it's not got loads and loads of stuff. It's quite pithy, but stimulating. I think even after all these years, it really comes out rather well. The constriction motif, line opening, play on the open file, culminating control of the 7th rank, exploiting pawn weaknesses and weak squares. And so it goes on. The effect of weak pawn configuration on the bishop's mobility. And it gives a game between Tarrasch and Showalter, played in Vienna in 1898. It's a Hungarian defense, not something we 3 bishop to king 2, a favorite with the Lady International Sheila Jackson, and also occasionally trotted out in his time by Vasily Smyslov. In between Kashdan and Tenor for the Manhattan Club Championships of 1934. In Kashdan's case, this preference is so marked that it may be considered an idiosyncrasy, his fondness for the 2 bishops. He also came on the Groucho Marx show. And there's a little fact which I've thrown in just specially. I knew you wanted to know that. So did Mark Spitz. And so did Isaac Kashdan. And for that matter, so did Bobby Fish. The answers section is pretty dense. And then it gives a nice summary of the whole game. In replaying, note that white's play is of the improvisation improvisational character, lacking foresight and coherence. Black's play, on the other hand, is clearly based on definite objectives. I'm sorry, I'm not that good at reading out loud. Almost from the start, White played to constrict his opponent's game. This requires a policy of repression. When was the last time you saw the word repression in a chess book? I really rate this. Index of motifs. That is of itself useful, isn't it? Index of players, index of openings. For a small book, I think it packs quite a punch. And it may have been this book which inspired Leonard Marden to start up his How Good Are You column in chess for B.H. Wood. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.